the social security coverage, as well as enhancing the spectrum of benefits that are attached to the available service and improving governance of the fund. The Act, among others, provides mandatory contribution by all employers, regardless of the size of the enterprise or a number of the top-ups by all members and mid-term access to members' contribution by qualifying members has been attached to it. And in the SMB Inside this time round, we take a look at an insightful in-depth of the Nssf Amendment Act of 2022. So you get to realize that there are some certain conditions that were set aside before we actually tap into this mid-term, rather into the Nssf Amendment Act. There is also the mid-term access of funds through the same act, by the way. And the mid-term access terms and conditions, because this is where most of the Ugandans are more excited about in regards to Nssf. The client, first of all, has to acknowledge that this service is voluntarily undertaken, and the information provided by the client is true, correct, and Nssf shall not be responsible for any loss that is occasioned as a result of wrong information. So Nssf also takes reasonable steps to verify the information which is provided by the client, so it continues to tell people that it's not liable for wrong information that is provided as long as this comes in through. But as we continue to have more details regarding this, Nssf has so far paid 624 million to board members, and this is one of the key issues that is actually coming through the discussions in Parliament. But also, besides the same kind of situation, you get to realize that also with the current conditions of the Nssf, the wrangles between Nssf, the National Social Security Fund, is not basically rotating around only the mid-term benefits, but also looking at deeply the kind of safety when it comes to the funds being saved at the fund, or people's funds that are being apparently saved at the end of it all. And in the SMB Inside this morning, we dig deeper in understanding where is the challenge at. Is it with the employees who do not want to voluntarily save, or the employers who don't want to remit? And then what should be done to be part of the entire saving scheme by Nssf? And then not only that, we also dig deeper in understanding the different pension schemes that are being set up by government in the next few years that will inspire saving for retirement by most of the working class communities in the country. This and more is coming up in our SMB Insight this morning.
Amendment was made this last year in February, January. I think it was gazetted around January. That's when they gazetted the law. It was signed and assented at that time. It was only, the scope was limited to those formerly employed individuals. But with the amendment, they try to broaden the aspect of voluntary contributors, where people even in the informal sector downtown can leverage saving within Nssf through as voluntary contributors. They also reduced the number of, back then, for an employer to remit an Nssf, or as a mandatory requirement for Nssf, you had to have a minimum of 5 employees. Now I think they reduced the number of employees that are needed for you to be a contributor as an employer. So I think they broadened the scope of the people they are trying to reach out. Whether that will succeed, well, that remains to be seen. But the biggest impediment to reaching people downtown or not in formal employment was the law. But they amended it. Now, let's wait and see how creative the managers in Nssf are to leverage this, what the law has opened up to reach people downtown who are not ready for informal employment. But for now, I should say that they're trying. The voluntary contributory scheme could be growing. I'm yet to look at the figures, but as compared to what it was, it should be growing now. Contribute to Nssf for certain employers and employees in the formal sector, it's a mandatory requirement. For instance, if you have more than, back in the days, used to be more than 5 employees, now they're reduced to 2. So under the law, there's a mandatory requirement for people. If you call them in formal employment, maybe even formal private employment, to leverage that contributory scheme as part of their savings. The only problem that approach has had is that it has not had an aggressive marketing, you can call it. And people downtown, who form the majority of the workforce, do not really know what Nssf is all about. And they have not been explained to the benefits of joining such a contributory scheme. And I don't know how the managers and the managing trustee at Nssf are trying to wiggle out this problem of penetrating the informal sector, because these are people most of them don't even have registered businesses. They're not like law firms where you can go to law council and look at law firms that have not registered for Nssf and you penalize them. These are individuals who they don't even incorporate a company, most of them. So it's going to take, it has to take some level of education by the managers of Nssf to penetrate that very big market of employers and employees. Well, one, don't have documents, financial statements, they don't keep records. If you are having a hard time taxing that part of the economy, why would Nssf have an easier time? Interest is declared, I think, by the minister at the closing balance of that financial year. Then they apply that interest. Now, interest that is declared is subject to the returns that their investments have garnered over time, all in that financial year. Whether they fail to pay back or not, I don't think Nssf has the leeway to tell contributors that we may not give you interest in this particular year. The problem would be the interest might not be as high as the contributors might want it to be. The biggest challenge I have with the interest declared by the fund is that it is subject to the investments that have been made at that time and the money available to pay out in interest. So if the business end of the investments is not yielding any returns, then suddenly they will have to write down whatever interest, write down, meaning they have to reduce the interest they will give to any contributor in the scheme. With the amendment of the Nssf Act, they created a lot of conflict of interest, especially pertaining to how contributors' money will be invested. It means that the minister can call up the internal managers and they get the 6 billion. It was, in my view, a deliberate loophole that was created to exploit contributors' money in the event that government has some liquidity issues, which if I can say that, some money that they don't have at their disposal. Because if you look at Nssf, and people have rightly said so, it is the cash cow of the economy. It's one of those big money cash cows sitting somewhere. And to some politicians, they would say that why is a lot of money sitting there doing nothing? Yeah, it's actually not doing nothing. That money is invested. But the assumption would be the money is sitting there doing nothing. Why does the government get access to it? So it implies, and sadly, but it also implies that the conflict of interest internally is going to create all these problems we're going to see in the future. What we are seeing now, for the government picking 1 trillion to build ministers' facilities or to reduce the amount of money government pays in rent, is the beginning of a long journey. We don't even know how far it will go, because now it's not mandatory for Nssf to lend government through treasury bills. Now government can go and pick money directly, in that they just call the minister just calls the money, the internal team at Nssf, we want this money, and they get it. So the ambiguities they're referring to, having no streamlined provisions that allow it, that ambiguity was created by the amendment. Sadly, it was not discussed widely in our media because, well, you guys tend to be very diversionary. You tend to toe a line of some irrelevant issues. So we missed the discussion. People discussed more the midterm benefits, which wasn't bad, but we did not discuss the issue as a whole. In the Amendment Act, what are the dangerous provisions, what are the good provisions? We veered more into the midterm benefits and their impact to the economy. We left that side of the discussion. Now that the law has been passed, what we can request Nssf to have is Nssf to have to put in place, and I think this is now on UBRA's side. UBRA should task Nssf to put in place sound prudential investment guidelines. I know they're already there, because under the law you cannot operate such a scheme without those guidelines. But what UBRA should state is that they should be unequivocal on the conflict of interest that is inherent with the amendment that was made. How is UBRA going to task Nssf to avoid a conflict of interest? Now they don't have a mandate to invest contributors' money through independent asset managers. They are regulated by Capital Markets Authority. Note 2, which has a big say, the National Trade Union Organization, the National Trade Union Organization, which has a big say in Nssf, should voice out some of these concerns, because I think Note 2 has a board seat, but again, even the representatives of the workers in Parliament have been largely silent. Even the Association of Trade Unions has been largely silent. They are caught up in the internal squabbles of leadership. They are missing the bigger goal. So I think Note 2 and the workers, MPs in Parliament, should ask questions to UBRA. What prudential guidelines are you putting in place to avoid a conflict of interest that could be associated with the loopholes in the law? Failure to do that, of course, we're going to have very many issues with the investment of funds of the contributors to the scheme. I think government is trying to increasingly move away from the national pension scheme idea for formally. I think pension schemes normally work for formally employed government employees, ideally. And the Nssf is supposed to be for privately employed individuals. But what the development we are seeing, and increasingly so, is that with pension you don't contribute as beneficiaries. It's literally comes out of taxpayers' money, gratuity and all that stuff. Due to our fiscal issues of tax collection, my prediction is government is increasingly trying to move away from a pension arrangement to a contributory Nssf-like scheme. So in the next 3 to 5 years, we might see a push towards even government, apart from the military, but a certain section of formally employed government workers might end up having contributory schemes of sorts that UBRA could regulate. I know UBRA regulates the pension sector as a whole, but we are going to see an increasing push to have more contributory schemes for certain section, not all, but the military certainly will be exempt, and maybe police, but the other government employees could, that are not covered under the military could, and police could increasingly have, but even the police, they have a contributory scheme where money is taken from them. I'm forgetting the name of that contributory scheme. But my firm belief is, I think only the army will be made, they will give the army only the army will be given exclusion when it comes to contributory schemes. But police and other government sector workers, because of their fiscal issues, government might end up having, pushing them into a scheme similar to Nssf. And given our tax issues and tax collection and debt issues, well, if our government, to make sense to move.
Many thanks for joining us.
Good morning, how are you?
I'm okay. So what do you have, what is making rounds lately, and what is your huge concern in regards to the business community out there?
So this story, of course, is driven by human interest. It's not, it could be business, but see, it's driven by human interest. I have noticed of the rampant homeless people on the streets. of recent, and I'm very intrigued as a person. Why is it on an increase? Why are these people coming from? Why are they homeless? First of all, and why has it increased, particularly for this season? So I'm hoping to look into it today. Actually, I will look into it today, and then find out some of the answers that I'm very intrigued to know.
Especially around the people who are actually sleeping around the streets.
Yes, and you know what occurs with such, behaviors, exploitation,
theft in the night.
A lot of insecurity.
You never know who is more harmful or less harmful to you.
This is a season where money is really scarce, at least for some people. So people are just trying to find refuge wherever they can, and murder. Lots of very juvenile bad behaviors that are really
can actually occur due to these particular cases. Well, you as well get to realize that some of them, especially those who actually sleep on the streets besides arcades, there are people who actually lay around arcades. And then there are also those who lay around the streets as you're leaving town. Some of them, when you look at some of the key findings, you realize that some of them actually work within the city. But due to maybe rent fees that are actually high, someone may not be able to pay. And at least it's more affordable.
You mentioned of key findings. Also, I was trying to do some research before I got on set, and I realized that most of them, or partly, or most of them are from northern Uganda due to war. The street children, and the people that are homeless on the streets. But I'm very certain that it's not only that. There must be something, because they have become so many. Just here at Garden City, as you're going home, you see like 3 of them. Ready by 7, they're already there, sleeping, and it's for tourism. It's not a good,
sign for any other tourist who comes into the country.
Yes, because if people don't have where to stay, then what can you tell me about your country?
Okay.
So the ministry in charge, of course, should be able to give me some answers. Uganda Human Rights, I've seen them do some work in regards to that. Should be able to give me answers. I hope to dive into that today, really.
Okay. And of course, as Ron Howard has discussed more of this particular one, it's more of a humanitarian cause as well. Because we do have lots of these cases in the country. And I do believe not only the young, the teenagers, but also even mature people already. People actually in their early 30s, the youth, who are actually sleeping on the floor. And you find some people actually sleeping with their children. It's a very huge concern, I should say.
It should. And most of them are even infants, carrying infants. They are kids, they are children. They already have children. It's unpleasant to look at.
Again, it takes us back to who now impregnates these young girls, because you get to realize you never find people with them. So, which means society already. There are lots of questions with society, and the mere fact that we have to protect them and provide them at least a homestead where they will sleep at the end of the day.
Yes, because a secure country, is a secure investment, is a secure outlook, global outlook. So we cannot be having street or homeless people on the streets increasing for a country that is trying to upgrade to the middle income status.
And of course, if we want to look through all those particular details, you realize we have to make sure that at least as a country we take this as a collective effort to ensure that we get these people off the streets, find where to place them, clear off the streets, let them be at least free. Like Ron has mentioned, you never know who is harmful in the night. You may be walking thinking someone is just sleeping by, then you get robbed, you get beaten up in the night, and they take away everything. I believe most of us have been victims of the same. If at all you've not been a victim, maybe you're lucky enough and you should be thankful, but hoping that it never happens to you. And so this is a report that Rona is steadily trying to uncover and bring more details in there to execute and at least bring to you a picture. Why do we have an increase in the number of people sleeping on the streets? Don't they have jobs? Don't they have where to stay? Don't they have family? Because we may be in here saying that these people just want to be on the streets when they are orphans and all that.
Human rights, GoFundMe, NGOs that come out to rescue these people. Those are my go-to people. I need to know.
And surely, if you're to focus more on that particular report, you'll be getting more details and follow-ups with the same matter on Business Today. 9 p.m. it is, and Ron and Howard will be giving you more details regarding it. Now, as we're heading into the break, remember to invest in government bonds and securities with Zabu. Zabu is making it very sure for you to at least invest in bonds. Star 292# is the USSD code that you can use today. Kickstart off your investment journey with the platform. The minimum amount for you to use while investing is only 15,000 Ugandan shillings. Also note that these markets are fully closed during the weekends and on public holidays. But Monday to Friday, you'll find the markets open at 8:15 a.m. As of now, they're already open. They will only be closed at 3:15 p.m. East African Standard Time. Zabu, my money, my Voltex East Africa, do something new. After the break, we shall be going on ground with Bariti Andrew for more business discussions. Good morning.